can finally say that I fell off Chainsaw Man Part 2 and have it be applicable to the context of this chapter. Now, I know a lot of you don't like the way I title my videos, and that's okay. I don't take my titles all too seriously. I actually think of them more so in a humorous way. They're never meant to be taken seriously, but right now, it kind of works well. It's okay if you think it's cringe, because I see you. I see a good handful of you say that it's cringe. That is perfectly fine. I love you and appreciate you either way. First and foremost, if you get angry at my titles, you most likely thought this was the fourth and final horseman. It is not. Turns out it is the falling devil, and there's a lot of interpretations of it, because you're probably thinking, how is a primal fear something to do with just falling over, falling from heights? Why does that make sense? There's more to this. Similar to the fear of darkness having multiple components within it, the fear of the unknown, the fear of what's in that darkness, falling is exactly the same thing. So yeah, you could have a fear of tripping over or falling from a height, but this is more so falling into a concept or falling out of a concept. When you kind of take that singular strand and stretch it over your everyday life and humanity in general, you get something that's extremely profound, wholeheartedly valuable, and something a lot of people don't recognize. This makes sense why it's subconscious and why it's also a primal fear. So the fear of falling in love, falling out of love, falling into despair, falling into different feelings or different ideas, just the process of going to that concept, to that idea, to that thing is what is the primal fear. So we've kind of been looking at things, at least in terms of this devil, a little bit wrong. This is not the end result, this is the motion towards it. This works extremely well with Asa, because not only does she have a genuine fear of falling within stressful and kind of clutch moments where she needs to do this or do that to live or run away or be successful, and she always fails. She always falls over, but you can use her, I guess, visual aid of physically falling over as a notion of failing. She falls before she even reaches the end concept or the end idea. This works well because falling devil has a lot of sway over human emotion, and the reason, or at least this is how Yoru explains it, why Asa feels the way she currently does, and then it's kind of provided to us with the rest of the chapter in the interpretation of trauma, and that individuals will have to face their trauma wholeheartedly, through and through from start to finish. I love how this is given to us, because the falling devil dons this chef cooking aesthetic, mixing that with the title of the chapter being hors d'oeuvre, meaning appetizer or starter. We're just getting started. This is the beginning of their abilities and what they're capable of, and we're already dealing with past trauma. Wild. And we know that there is a lot of touchy spots for Asa and her past. I mean, even now currently with what she faces emotionally is enough, but everything prior, strap yourself in. So now that we have established this devil, how they operate and the effect that they have on humanity, this is going to become a very difficult battle for Asa. A battle of the minds, a battle of preservation, a battle of confronting, potentially trying to accept, learn, evolve, digest your own trauma. The problem is that when it's forcefully given to you, when it's redirected at you within a malicious extent, even non-tweaked, there's nothing saying that the falling devil can't tweak people's own traumas, but why would you need to? Why take away what makes that trauma so difficult by trying to amplify and make it worse? Most likely this is all legitimate. This is all what has happened to Asa, what she's gone through and how she's interpreted it. We don't want to devalue that, right? We don't want to suddenly make it invalid just because the devil may or may not be able to tweak it. We have to face this and battle it. This is something that Asa is known for not doing. She does not battle these things because, once again, trauma. Not everyone can do it. Humanity is kind of built of this idea of barely facing what has happened within their past and kind of just moving on with it. So having a devil that quite literally embodies that motion before the concept is so incredibly smart. It even could work with falling into something positive because there's a fear behind it that something may happen later on. Maybe you don't deserve it. Maybe you took it from someone else. This is exactly Asa's representation, and that she won't allow herself to be happy, to be genuinely kind of within the moment, because there is a rooted fear within her that it's not going to last, that it's not going to end well, and that she's just going to crumble once again. So why even put her on the pedestal? Why even approach that point if she knows within the future something bad's going to happen. So she's not even going to move. She's just going to stay where she is. And we've seen that throughout part 2 quite a lot. But funny enough, the person who has challenged her mentally, emotionally, even physically is none other than Denji. And I think this devil and Denji going at it is going to work really well. Denji has a ton of trauma, but it affects him very differently to a lot of other people. Not that he's special in a way, but more so his trauma was so incredibly volatile and disgusting that it changed him as a child. It stunted his growth. It made him mentally and emotionally childish in a lot of ways because of it. He never knew a normal life. He never knew what it was like to be a normal human. So the way Denji faces his trauma or his emotions now is extremely and entirely different to normal individuals. To say that the falling devil wouldn't work on Denji is a little bit of a stretch, but it's not going to work the same way. That would also depend entirely on the perspective that the devil wanted to take with Denji and not realizing what he's actually been through. Speaking of people that have been through stuff, Asa and her past, to put simply, just rough. Seeing her within this state after her mother has passed away, after the typhoon devil has rolled through, she's at an orphanage. She has nowhere else to go. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is the starting point of all of her feelings, where she struggles to feel and connect with people. It could have easily started prior, but I think here, definitely the most valuable. Obviously, losing your mother is a massive deal, especially if you blame yourself for being part of the reason why she passed. The cat that you managed to save in response, however, is your saving grace. That is your healing point. That is your support animal. And I want to make this very, very clear. It is used as a support animal for Asa. You won't see it in the most typical of ways, but it is always connected to her. She is incredibly protective over it, and she only spends time with this cat. It is her support cat. The orphanage, I guess, head or leader, whatever you want to call her. A lot of you are going to have some very vile names for her after what she does. She says that this cat is unhealthy, that Asa depends on it too much. One of the kids is also allergic to it, so she offers the cat a new home. A friend of hers has a cat sanctuary. She's going to love it. It's going to be a great time. This is a lie. This is just a bold, not true moment. You can see Asa is extremely hesitant about this, doesn't want to do it at all, and her face clearly reflects it. She's just not feeling it. This is her support cat. But the orphanage lady just kind of goes into making Asa feel bad, making her feel like she is in the wrong for having this cat, and that if she continues to have this cat, it's not fair on that cat, now named Crambon, because that cat could be elsewhere with other ones. Trying to loop back into the group mentality of things. So a singular cat should be with multiple cats, and Asa as a person should go and interact with the other children. It is very much deceptive and also manipulative to get some sort of response, and unfortunately she gets it. Asa kind of cracks underneath the pressure, and mostly not because of the sub-story, but probably because she doesn't want her cat to be alone. I think this is a proving point for her character. She's not doing this for herself. She's not doing this so she can interact with the other children. She's not doing this because of the sub-story that the lady brought up about everyone having shared trauma. It's more so as soon as she mentioned that Crambon would be happier with other cats, she instantly took it. That's what she wants. Make Crambon happy. Asa is always trying to look out for other people and never herself. But when she does look out for other people, it never ends well. This is Asa's identity, really. She wants to be compassionate. She wants to help, but every time she does, something bad happens. And this is the start of it. This moment is just grim in its entirety. The more that I go back and read it, take everything in, it kind of makes you a little bit sick to your stomach. It's Fujimoto at his finest, really playing with something very simple, but having it filled with so much anxiety, especially with how this lady is just standing in the door frame and how she's looking down at Asa. Horrifying. It works doubly well because the kids passively mention Asa's cat, almost like they didn't really have a problem with Asa's cat to begin with, asking where did Crambon go? And then they say that they might have seen Crambon at the bottom of the river. That's when this lady appears. And you know what this lady says? She says, everyone here lost their family. You can't be the only one with a family member. Isn't that unfair? Just chalk it up there, pack your bags, we're done. After this, you get a beautiful kind of inverted world with this primal fear really flexing their powers, showing the world kind of darkened over, upside down, and people falling, and Asa's doing her best to hang on. This is a fight of traumas, a fight realistically against yourself. And you see all of these people floating up into the sky, with the falling devil saying that the lower your heart sinks, the higher your body falls. May the flavor of your past traumas delight your taste buds. But it isn't just evaluated off the severity of those past traumas. It's emotional. It's quite literally your heart and how you've reacted to trauma in the past. That's why this fear is very scary, because it is entirely personal to each individual on this planet. And Asa's just here, dangling, looking down, or technically up, into the abyss. That would be her own nightmare. To end the chapter here is sad, because you just want more. You really want to see where this goes. And we have to wait 2 weeks for it, but you know those 2 weeks are building up to something pretty special. Currently, the only way that I see this going is that Denji is the one to arrive, and that this is the problematic, disgusting scent of a devil that Naoto is smelling. I wonder if it would work for her too. I wonder if she technically has any past traumas because she's been reborn back into the human world. Would it just take into consideration what she's been through nowadays, which most likely hasn't been much? She's probably had it really well with Denji. Or would it take into consideration her past, her different bodily experiences? In that case, would it work for Yoru as well? I think Denji is the perfect fit for this battle with everything that I said before. His past, his experience, how he deals with things is very different to the normal human. It's sad in reality, but in this instance, it may work in his favor really well. Now, I am very interested with the purpose of this primal fear. Based on what we got in regards to Nostradamus, they are here to resurrect the worst thing to exist. They're here to resurrect potentially the final horseman. So I'm curious if the ability that's being used gives rise to the idea of death more and is meant to kind of remind people of death, the consequences of it, and if it's kind of associated with those traumas. Because if it is, realistically, you're kind of refueling or repurposing the idea of death more and more. But then again, how do you give birth to death? If this primal fear has seemingly been summoned here, which kind of seems like it, for this purpose of Nostradamus trying to move people out of the way, specifically Yoru as well. They want Yoru and Asa gone. I think it would be funny if the final horseman doesn't want the other three around. We know there's a bit of rivalry between them. We know that they're not as close as we'd like to imagine, but they all have their own kind of values and or interpretation. Because it seems like the final horseman wants the other ones gone. Maybe it's a necessity in this case to be spawned into the human world, but that's just a far off reach. All we know is that this primal fear is working with a purpose, with an intent. Currently, it's just to get rid of Asa, but there is more here, obviously. Play that back into Nostradamus and the prophecy, it makes sense, but we just don't know the full value of it. I am very much excited. Couldn't be more curious to see where this goes, and I want to know all of your thoughts about this chapter and any theories that you have right now. Thank you.